Have you ever felt like you were stuck in an endless cycle where you pray, believe, have faith, visualize your dreams, but still things just don't seem to happen? As if there is an invisible clock beyond your control that decides when or if your dreams will come true. And while you wait, life passes by, time flies, and deep down, a question starts to echo in your mind. Am I doing something wrong? Or is God taking too long? If this question has ever crossed your mind, take a deep breath and stay with me until the end, because what you will discover today can completely change the way you see time, faith, and action. There is a truth, little talked about, that hides behind the greatest achievements, the greatest transformations, and the most impressive stories of success and prosperity. And no, it is not about working until you are exhausted, nor about waiting for miracles to fall from the sky. It is about understanding once and for all how to align your internal clock with God's clock, and with the universal laws that govern prosperity, success, and abundance. And before you think this is empty motivational talk, let me tell you something. This is science applied to spirituality. It is mindset. It is discipline. It is living faith, the kind that moves mountains, combined with consistent action. You know, maybe you've already felt this frustration firsthand. You pray powerful prayers, you think. You repeat affirmations. You consume personal development content. You read books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. But progress seems slow, almost non-existent. You see other people prospering, growing, achieving, while you keep waiting for something to change, for a door to open, for God to give you a sign. But what if I told you that maybe the sign you've been waiting for is exactly this video you're watching right now? What few people tell you, and what Napoleon Hill understood deeply, is that there is a master key capable of unlocking this gear. And this key is called perfect synchrony between time, faith, and action. And look, when you understand this, everything changes, really. Because here's a hard but liberating truth. God does not work in the time of procrastination. God works in the time of discipline, constancy, and active faith. And do you know what the biggest mistake is that stops you from living your dreams? Thinking that just wishing, wanting it badly, or having faith is enough. When, in reality, faith without action is dead. And action without direction also leads nowhere. By the way, answer me honestly. How many times have you caught yourself saying, I know I have potential, I know God has something big for me, but for some reason, I just can't get anywhere? If you've ever felt this way, comment below, because you're not alone. I understand you. And I've been there, in that exact same place. What you need to understand, and you will understand today, is that there is a way to align your dreams with the divine clock, without anxiety, without that despair of thinking that everything is late, but also without falling into the trap of simply waiting for everything to happen on its own. Because let me tell you, God's clock is not slow, but He also does not wait for those who do not move. And yes, what you're about to discover now could literally be the turning point in your life. Because when you understand how to combine faith, discipline, and a prosperity mindset, you not only stop expecting miracles, you start living as if you yourself are a miracle in motion. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about from now on. And you know, while I tell you all this, one thing beats strongly in my heart. We are not here by chance. You didn't stumble upon this video by accident. There is a greater reason, a divine connection that brought you here. And if this message resonates with you, then I invite you to do something now that is much more than a simple gesture. It is an act of faith, of declaration, of transformation. Right here in the comments, with all your strength, all your intention, and all your faith, discipline, and action, I activate the clock of my prosperity. Right as if you were making a spiritual commitment to your new journey. And do you know why? Because when you declare, you activate. You not only release this energy into your life, but you also inspire other people who will come here, read your comments, and realize that they are not alone on this path. And let me tell you something from the bottom of my heart. Your participation here is not only important, it is essential. Every time you comment, every time you leave a like full of positive energy, YouTube understands that this content is relevant and starts showing this message to more and more people who are exactly in the same place you were, looking for a path, an answer, a direction, a transformation. So if this subject touches your soul, if you feel that this makes sense, leave your like now. This is more than supporting the channel. It's supporting this mission of spreading knowledge, faith, positive mindset, and prosperity to thousands of people who need to hear it. And look, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, do it now. Activate the bell, because I want to accompany you on this journey. This is not just a video. It is a community. It is a movement. It is a safe space of growth, of spirituality, of abundance, where we are all walking together, leaving the cycle of waiting and entering the cycle of manifestation, of fulfillment, of prosperity. Sign up, because here you no longer walk alone. Here you will learn, grow, transform your mindset, align your faith with your actions, and most importantly, understand that God did not create you to live a life of scarcity, but rather of fullness, of wealth, and not just financial, but wealth of life, of spirit, of purpose. So comment, like, and subscribe, because what comes next, my friend, will show you exactly how to unlock once and for all this spiritual clock and put your life in the flow of blessing, discipline, and fulfillment. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject because there is a hidden truth that few people realize, and maybe it is exactly what is missing to unlock your life. Most people grow up believing that everything has its time, that things will happen at the right time, and yes, this is true. But the problem begins when this belief becomes an excuse to stop, to postpone, to justify the lack of movement. And here lies one of the biggest mistakes that imprison dreams and delay destinies, believing that waiting is the same as having faith. Napoleon Hill once said that faith is the starting point of all achievement, but he also stated clearly that without action, discipline, and focus, faith becomes nothing more than an empty intention, disconnected from the result. And you know, this isn't just in Hill's words. The Bible itself confirms this when it says in James 2:26 that faith without works is dead. What does this mean in practice? It is not God who is taking too long. It is not the universe that is late. Many times it is you who have not realized that there is a spiritual clock, and it does not work the same way as our human clock. While you are waiting for a sign, a confirmation, an answer, God is actually waiting for you to activate your part, align your mentality, make firm decisions, and start moving in the direction of your dreams. There is a huge difference between waiting with faith and waiting in inertia. When you wait with active faith, you act, you plant, you prepare. It is like a farmer who prays for rain, but leaves home, prepares the soil, and plants the seed. Now, when you wait in inertia, you just watch life go by, believing that one day something magical will happen, and deep down you feed a silent frustration, which turns into anxiety, which turns into fear, and often into giving up. And this is one of the strongest revelations that Napoleon Hill brings when he talks about the power of decision and persistence. In the book, Think and Grow Rich, he does not separate spirituality from achievement. On the contrary, he shows that prosperity, success, and transformation are built with the union of faith, discipline, action, and a mindset aligned with eternal principles. The Bible confirms this in Ecclesiastes 11:4, when it says that he who watches the wind will not sow, and he who looks at the clouds will not reap. In other words, those who live waiting for perfect conditions never get anywhere. How many times have you caught yourself thinking that maybe it's not the right time yet, that it's better to wait a little longer, that you'll start soon, and then days, months, years go by, and nothing changes? The truth is that this wait is often a trap that keeps you disconnected from your purpose, far from your dreams, and far from the transformation you seek so much. Spiritual time is not about standing still. It is about being ready. It is about understanding that God acts in His time, yes, but He acts when He realizes that you are also acting, when you plant the right seeds, when you take ownership of your part in this process. And look, if you think this is just motivational talk, go back to the teachings of Jesus. Go back to what Napoleon Hill teaches us. Both talk about the power of decision, action, sowing, and faith, combined with movement. Comment here, I refuse to stand still. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because if there is one truth that transforms, it is this. Faith without action is absolutely useless. Strong, right? But it's real. And that's not me saying it, no. The Bible has already made this clear in James 2:17. So also faith, if it does not have works, is dead in itself. And Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, not only reinforces this, but also shows in a practical way how this truth directly impacts the prosperity, success, and fulfillment of any person. And you know what's even more curious? Many people keep declaring that they have faith, that they believe in change, that God will open a door, but they remain still, without movement, without discipline, waiting for something magical to happen. And here is a powerful revelation. Faith is not a winning ticket. Faith is fuel. It only makes sense if you have a vehicle, which, in this case, is your action. Without that vehicle, no matter how much you pray, declare, desire, nothing moves. Napoleon Hill made this very clear when he stated that desire, faith, and persistent action are the pillars that build any success. And look, this speaks directly to Proverbs 16:3, where it is written, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed." See, the verse isn't talking about what you think, desire, or just believe. It's talking about what you do. And here lies the silent error that paralyzes thousands of people. They believe that only positive thinking, only the right mindset, or only prayer will make everything happen. But they don't understand that there is a part that God does not do for you. There is a part that is exclusively yours. And this is called disciplined, consistent, daily action. The mindset of someone who truly thrives is completely different. It's not the kind of person who wakes up and says, "I hope something changes today." It's the kind of person who wakes up and says, "Today I am the change. Today I act as if my blessing is already real." This is living faith. It is faith in motion. It is faith that speaks directly to heaven and makes God look at you and say, "Now, yes, now I can give you what was already yours, but which could only be released when you showed that you were ready." And this is exactly what Napoleon Hill teaches when he talks about decision, persistence, and organized action. Without this, your dreams remain on the shelf of unfulfilled desires, waiting eternally for a time that never comes. And once again, the Bible confirms in Ecclesiastes 9:10, "Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might." It's about taking action. It's about not expecting perfection or ideal conditions or your dream scenario. It's about starting with what you have, where you are, however you can. The faith that generates transformation is not the one that just waits. It is the one that builds. The one that plants, waters, and trusts that growth comes, not through anxiety, but through the certainty that whoever moves, whoever acts, whoever does their part, activates heaven in their favor. Comment here, "My faith is in motion." Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because there is a silent, sneaky, and extremely dangerous cycle that has been holding back the lives of thousands of people. And perhaps, without even realizing it, you are trapped in it. This is what I call spiritual procrastination. This happens when someone sincerely believes that just praying, just having faith, just thinking is enough. And in the meantime, life goes by, opportunities slip through your fingers, and that feeling of frustration starts to take over. That question that keeps hammering in your mind, why doesn't it happen to me? And here I need to be direct with you, because this is a frank conversation from soul to soul. The truth is that many people are confusing faith with inertia. They believe that waiting, praying, and surrendering to God alone will solve everything. And without realizing it, they plunge into a cycle that only generates more anxiety, more anguish, more stagnation. And do you know what's worse? Your mind starts to sabotage you. You start to believe that you weren't born for this, that prosperity isn't for you, that maybe God is testing you, when in fact God is just waiting for you to get up and activate your part in this journey. Napoleon Hill hits this point very hard when he says that wanting is not enough. You must be willing to do what is necessary. And if you look at the Bible, it confirms this in Proverbs 13:4. The lazy man desires and gets nothing, but the desires of the diligent are abundantly satisfied. Do you understand the weight of this? It's not about wishing, it's about doing. It's about understanding that if you don't move, you don't get anywhere. And look, spiritual procrastination is sneaky. It comes disguised as waiting time, process, when God wants. And of course, God's time does exist. But pay close attention. God's timing was never an excuse for paralysis. Jesus himself, when he healed, said, "Get up, take up your bed, and walk." There is always a command to action. There is always a movement required. If you notice that your life seems to be at a standstill lately, that doors are not opening, that results are not coming, it may be that you are living more in passive prayer than in active prayer, and I am not the one who invented this, nor is Napoleon Hill. This is spiritual, it is biblical, and it is practical. Ecclesiastes 11:6 makes this clear. In the morning sow your seed, and in the evening do not withhold your hand, for you do not know which will prosper. In other words, those who plant, reap. Those who don't plant, just watch the lives of others flourish. And do you know what hurts the most? It's realizing that while many are waiting for a blessing to fall from the sky, others have understood that the true blessing has already been released, but it needs to be activated with discipline, living faith, and consistent action. And this is the behind the scenes that no one tells you about success, about transformation, about prosperity. There is no magic formula. There is a mindset, there is decision, there is effort aligned with faith. Comment here, I break this cycle today. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because when you understand how the spiritual clock works, a switch simply flips in your mind. And this is where a lot of things start to make sense. There is a formula, a code, that both Napoleon Hill and the Bible itself reveal, but that most people ignore. And that is exactly what keeps them stuck in stagnation. And this formula is clear, simple, and extremely powerful. Faith, discipline, and mindset. It seems simple, right? And it is. But simple doesn't mean easy. The hidden truth that almost no one tells you is that it's not enough to just believe. It's not enough to just think positively. And it's also no use acting without direction. When you combine active faith, daily discipline, and a mindset aligned with the principles of prosperity and abundance, you enter a new level of life. It's as if you finally unlock the divine clock, the one that aligns your time with God's time. Napoleon Hill made this extremely clear in the book Think and Grow Rich when he wrote that thoughts, when combined with faith and persistence, become reality. And look how this speaks directly to Romans 12:2, which says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." In other words, there is no external transformation without first having an internal transformation. It is your mind that defines the speed of your results, the size of your achievements, and the depth of your prosperity. And here comes a detail that makes all the difference. There are people who have faith, but no discipline. They believe, pray, and think about it, but they don't execute. They don't follow through. They don't follow a plan. They don't maintain consistency. And there are others who are disciplined, work hard, and make an effort, but they don't have faith. They don't have a consistent mindset, and they live in a cycle of tiredness, scarcity, and the famous work hard and earn little. And then comes that cruel feeling that life isn't moving forward, that nothing changes. Now, when you combine these three forces, faith, discipline, and mindset, something extraordinary happens. You move from survival mode to construction mode. Your life stops being a series of failed attempts and becomes an intentional journey where each step has a purpose, each action has an impact, and each decision brings you closer to your transformation. The Bible reinforces this in Joshua 1:8, where it says, "This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night, that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. Then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success." See? Meditate. Mindset, practice, discipline, and trust the promise, faith. It's all there, wide open. This is the triad that Napoleon Hill saw and translated into practical principles. And believe me, whoever masters this triad masters their results. Whoever ignores it remains hostage to chance, luck, circumstances, and the famous "who knows, maybe one day." Comment here: I activate this triad in my life. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because everything I'm telling you here doesn't come from books, theories, or memorized verses. It comes from experience. It comes from real life. And if I'm here bringing you these revelations today, it's because I've been exactly where you might be now. At that point where we have faith, we have desire, but it seems like nothing flows, nothing moves, nothing comes to fruition. And to be honest, I also fell into the trap of the cycle of waiting. For a long time, I believed that just praying, asking, and having faith was enough. And look, I did it hard, you know. I prayed, I declared, I watched personal development content, I read the Bible, I read Napoleon Hill, I focused on it, but in practice, my life continued the same way. I would get to the end of the month and nothing had changed. The same bills, the same challenges, the same frustration, and deep down, a voice would start to whisper, "Does this really work? Is God not listening to me?" Until one day, reading the book again, Think and Grow Rich, one sentence just hit me like a punch in the chest. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Desire combined with faith and continuous action becomes an irresistible force." That same week, I opened my Bible and came across James 2:17. "So also faith, if it does not have works, is dead in itself." And then it hit me. I understood that I wasn't waiting for God. It was God who was waiting for me to act, for me to take a stand, for me to do my part. That's when the transformation began. I stopped living as a waiter and started living as a doer. And it wasn't magic. It wasn't an instant miracle. It was a process that began the exact moment I understood that my faith needed to have legs. It needed to walk hand in hand with discipline and, above all, with a renewed mindset. I started making plans, putting clear goals on paper, organizing my routine, waking up earlier, replacing excessive content consumption with practice, with execution. And, at first, it seemed like nothing was happening. But little by little, everything started to unlock. Opportunities started to appear, doors started to open, the right connections started to emerge, and I started to realize that what had previously seemed blocked was, in fact, a reflection of my own internal paralysis. And this is not just in what Napoleon Hill teaches. The Bible reinforces in Proverbs 21:5 that well-laid plans lead to abundance, but hasty and negligent people end in poverty. And I realized that it wasn't about rushing, nor about waiting. It was about doing it with strategy, with discipline, with consistency. That's when I understood that living in God's time doesn't mean crossing my arms waiting for something to happen, but rather aligning my clock with His. And that's only possible when I act in accordance with what I ask for in prayer. Comment here. I come out of waiting mode and enter into doing mode. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because if there's one thing I've learned on this journey, it's that spirituality without strategy is just an illusion. And look, I say this with complete sincerity because I've lived on both sides. The side of those who wait and pray without taking action, and the side of those who pray, take action, and see the sky moving along with them. There is indeed a kind of spiritual map, a step-by-step guide that allows you to truly align your internal clock with God's clock. And when that happens, my friend, transformation is inevitable. And it all starts with something that Napoleon Hill repeats tirelessly in Think and Grow Rich: clarity of purpose. If you don't know exactly what you want, where you're going, and what you're looking for, you become a hostage to chance, luck, and circumstances. And this isn't just a philosophical concept. This is pure scripture. Proverbs 29:18 already says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Do you realize the weight of this? The lack of a clear goal not only delays your life, it literally destroys your dreams. Then comes discipline. And this is where most people get stuck, because it's easy to have faith on Sunday during prayer, during worship, during morning meditation. It's hard to keep that same faith alive on Wednesday when the bills are piling up, when discouragement hits, when the results don't come as quickly as you'd like. And do you know what Napoleon Hill teaches about this? That daily discipline is not about willpower. It's about creating systems, routines, and habits that keep you on track, even when motivation fails. And there is no way to escape this principle. The Bible is clear in Galatians 6:9, "And let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." This is about constancy, about not stopping, about continuing, even if the results are not yet visible. Because it is exactly in the invisible that God works, and it is exactly in the visible that you need to act. And the third pillar of this map is mindset. And here, my friend, if you don't adjust your mind, you sabotage yourself, because there's no point in having faith and discipline if deep down you feel unworthy, small, or incapable. Napoleon Hill already warned, whatever the human mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And this speaks directly to Romans 12:2, which says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." When you combine these three elements, a clear purpose, a daily discipline, and a mindset aligned with kingdom principles, you activate the spiritual clock of prosperity, growth, and fulfillment. You literally enter the flow where faith and action meet, and where God moves with the mover. So, if something inside you is vibrating with this message, if your conscience is telling you that the time has come to turn this switch, comment here: "I activate my spiritual clock." Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because after everything you've heard so far, you can no longer pretend you don't. No, there is a truth that has been revealed, and this truth has the power to transform your life once and for all. And you know, this is not just about money, about material prosperity, about achieving things. This is about freedom. Freedom to be who God called you to be. Freedom to break out of the cycle of stagnation, frustration, and eternal waiting, and finally take control of your journey, aligning your faith with action and unlocking the spiritual clock that has been stopped for too long. And it is impossible to talk about this without once again remembering the teachings of Napoleon Hill, who clearly states, "He who has no definite purpose in life is condemned to work for those who do." This is strong. This is real. And if you look at the Bible, you will notice that Jesus himself, in several passages, always led people to a decision. There is no miracle without movement. There is no transformation without positioning. That is why in Deuteronomy 30:19, God makes it very clear. "Today I set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life." In other words, there is a decision that only you can make. And this decision is not something symbolic. It is not just internal. It is visible. It is practical. It is daily. It is when you wake up and decide to no longer be a hostage to circumstances. It is when you declare, "Today I am the answer to my own prayers," because God has given you authority, power, intelligence, and access to the tools. He has already given you the promise. What is left now is for you to decide to live up to it. Napoleon Hill always made it clear that people fail, not for lack of faith, not for lack of desire, but for lack of discipline, clarity, and commitment to their own transformation. And this is exactly what the Bible confirms in James 1:22, when it says, "Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves." Do you understand the depth of this? Self-deception is when you believe that just listening, just consuming, just desiring, just praying is enough. But the word is clear. Without practice, without action, without movement, there is no change. And you know, maybe you've realized that this conversation isn't just about theory. It's not just about personal development or spirituality disconnected from reality. This is about you understanding, once and for all, that the time for waiting is over, that now is the time to assume with all your strength that your life, your purpose, and your results are directly linked to the choices you make every day. So, if this message touched you, if something inside you moved, comment here, "I choose to live in the time of fulfillment."